Hey everyone, glad to see so many people rolling in already. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes to allow people to join. In the meantime, we'd love to hear where you all are joining from today. Oakland, Los Angeles, Portugal, Wilmington. That's awesome. I personally am sitting in Pune in India, and it's a pretty chilly night. The winters are just starting to roll in now. It's chilly for India, obviously. Awesome. We've got people from all around. Glad to see that. Cool. So I think we've got a bunch of people here. So I'm just gonna kick things off. Just one sec. I'm just gonna share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see it. Yeah, okay. I think. All right, perfect. Hey guys, glad all of you are here. My name is Archit. I'm the product marketer here at Snaptrude. And today I'm really excited to be hosting the webinar and showing you what we've been building over the past few months. And yeah, I won't take much time with the intros, but for those of you who don't know, Snaptrude is a cloud-based design platform built for architects and design teams. And over here, it brings your program to design, to BIM, and to presentation, everything, all the tools together in one place. So you're not jumping between different apps. And we've recently launched Snaptrude AI, which accelerates the workflows 10x to 20x. And I'm really excited to be demoing some of our new AI capabilities here. Before we get started, just wanted to point out quickly that the free version of Snaptrude is available for anyone to try out. So I would even encourage you to just load at snaptrude.com and just get started right away as we are going through the webinar. Also, we just recently launched Snaptrude for students for education. And that means that Snaptrude Pro is now available free for students and educators. Cool. What we'll be doing today is we'll be creating a project. And this is how basically you start a project on Snaptrude. There are different ways. I'm going to just type in a prompt along with an RFP and a site. The project that we have chosen today is a higher education project. And I'm just going to attach the brief here. Yeah, the reason why I have chosen an education project is because it gives a good mix of classrooms, labs, admin spaces, and showing both repeatable modules as well as one-off elements. I'm going to go through the early design process, show you how to move things around real quick. But most of it is just going to be like setting up some modules and then copying them across stories. So we don't waste much time in the modeling, but actually get to explore the AI features. I have attached the RFP here and just going to quickly load in the site. Now I have the coordinates, which I'll paste in here. And you'll see that it basically flies over to the coordinates that you pasted. Yeah, so I basically pasted the site coordinates and we flew over to Oregon. And now I can select the property parcels of that compose our site. And this workflow is pretty much the way it was in Snaptrude. As always, you can choose any site anywhere in the world, and it'll give you accurate site data. It won't give you the property parcels for sites outside of the US, but we're working on that as well. But it will give you all the exact site coordinates. The AI capabilities will basically read where your site is and give you zoning laws, code compliances according to your exact site. Okay, yeah, I've selected the site here. Just going to load it here. And just going to type a prompt like create a high school. Yeah, so once I hit that, basically this is the new thing that we have launched, which we're calling Snaptrude AI. And essentially what it is basically a stack of different tools that are all AI driven for reading your site in context, for creating a program based on it, for giving you program blocks that you can start playing around with in 3D, and then also assigning very accurate sizing and proportions to these blocks and stacking them vertically in the correct stories. And finally, finishing off with design inspirations, which are basically like AI renders that give you some inspiration, right? And you'll see here that it starts talking to you, like it starts telling you exactly what is happening in the backend and how it's doing the site analysis. And yeah, the idea is that you can actually watch it think while the stream runs. It's very clear about what exactly is happening. And it's like having an extra set of hands, basically. A lot of people ask that, is it like you type a prompt and then it generates a building? Yeah, it's not exactly that, but it's basically speeding up all the boring parts of the product process, everything that is very time consuming and can be automated, and giving you a solid early concept to basically start doing what you love doing, which is designing with spaces. That's the idea over here. Now, I'm not going to bore you by like just sitting here and reading whatever's happening. So I'm just quickly, okay, let's maybe let it load the site. Over here, you can see that it has loaded up the site parcel, and now it's moving on to the next step, which is creating the program table. And yeah, so I was saying that I'm just going to switch to a completed model just to give you an idea of what it feels like on Snaptrude to be at the end of the process. So thank God, I was almost going to open it in the same tab. So this is just to give you a feel of what a finished project looks like. You might have seen it in some of our content on socials. But yeah, this is basically the same prompt that we just ran with a six-story higher education project. And yeah, you can see over here the fidelity of detail that we get. And this is a good opportunity to just see what the canvas looks like. It's very similar to any legacy 3D tools that you have been using, except for the fact that over here in the top, we have these 4 different modes. And they're basically like, just to keep things simplified, it's like the product is in 4 different compartments that let you do things apart from just 3D modeling, right? Because everything that an architect does is not necessarily within the 3D canvas. I'll just quickly walk you through the 4 modes, starting with the program mode, which is basically like the spreadsheet that contains all the data of every space in your project. And you'll see over here that it has space labels, it has areas for every space, and it has departments assigned. The spaces are assigned to specific departments. Over here, it's showing all of them as 0 for some reason. Maybe it's because this is an older project that I just loaded up. But yeah, it basically assigns values to each and every space. I just expanded the spreadsheet. And once I scroll to the right, you'll be able to see that it has the areas, the room counts, the target areas for each space. And the best part is that this is all live linked to your canvas. So making any edits over here would affect the spaces in your design mode and vice versa. If you push pull spaces out in and out, it would affect program as well. You also have an extension of the program mode on the right here, which is the areas analysis tab. And this has live areas like showing you the percentages as per the targets that you set initially with your project. Yeah, and then moving on, yeah, design mode is basically where you do all the designing, the 3D modeling. You have a bunch of tools on the top. You can just start drawing in new spaces and then place them in your main space. And then you go from this, like a simple 3D space, to a model which looks like this, which comprises of these multiple spaces, right? And in the BIM tab is basically where you start detailing some of these. So just a quick sneak peek, if I were to say, select this space that I just created and go over to BIM tab and say sketch to BIM, it would convert it into an actual room with walls and slabs, right? So that's what happens mostly in the BIM tab, along with assigning materials, placing furniture, trees, things like that. And finally, in the present tab, this is the whiteboard where all of your ideas come together. And you can start dragging in views that you've saved in your model onto these sheets, right? And you get a bunch of whiteboarding tools on the top. You can place sticky notes. You can have discussions over here. So this present mode is like an infinite canvas where you can express your ideas and go directly from your 3D model to a finished presentation. And we're going to create some of these outputs in this presentation as well. These here are AI renders. So we'll get to this and how you can actually create all of this, right? So yeah, that's a brief overview of the canvas and the modes and how the product works. Now over here on the top left, you'll see that there is an AI mode and there is an editor mode. So everything that I just showed you is basically the editor mode, where you have complete control of the design. The AI mode is basically what we started out with, which is this chatbot over here and the stream and the initial outputs that it creates.
Hey Arjun, question from Brian. Hey Brian, I'm going to unmute you. You can go ahead and ask a question.
Hi there. Yeah, I was just wondering, within your matrix, your program matrix, is there an ability to assign hierarchies for adjacencies? I saw in your presentation, in presentation mode, there was definitely some bubble diagrams that were generated, but I'm trying to understand the logic where we can take bubble diagrams and adjacencies, assign values to those, and actually get a legible and comprehensive floor plan out of that.
Okay, so I just want to understand better, like the intent behind doing that would be to figure out which spaces deserve to be like in the middle and which spaces should be around them, and then figure out the adjacencies accordingly.
Yeah, I mean that's where, just wondering if there's a logic behind that built into the AI platform, or I haven't seen enough of the actual floor plans to understand how they're stitched together. Just a question
Right.
that we've had in our office regarding these generative platforms.
Uh-huh. All right, absolutely. Yeah, I'll just quickly explain this within the design mode. If you allow me, I'll open a new project, like rather an old project, which has some of these spaces. Let me just open this up. And I'll show you like the stage at which you would actually go ahead and do the AI adjacency planning. I was actually going to jump into this right after explaining the just seeing where we are in terms of this. So that's perfect. So yeah, over here, you'll see that what you basically get are departments and spaces that the AI generates. Now, before I start explaining all of this, to answer Brian's question, let's, for example, switch to the first floor here. And let's say we want to work with these 4 departments. Right. So what AI adjacencies basically does, and the way you access them is from over here. It basically gives you a connection between the different departments or spaces. And that in the backend, it's basically like going back to your site, to your zoning codes, and identifying what are the best practices and which spaces should be next to each other. Now, the way I would define the hierarchy that you mentioned is actually by doing this floor-wise and space-wise. So the way I would go about it is, first, I would see all the departments or like the envelope spaces on just one floor. And once I have their adjacencies, like over here, you'll see that it has given us these lines which represent direct, indirect, and restricted adjacencies. And you'll also see an AI summary here, which is what's happening in the backend, everything that the AI is referring to actually generate these. It might not look like a lot right now, but imagine this on the scale of a hospital floor where there are so many different spaces and you have to make sure that things which are not supposed to be next to each other are not, and vice versa, right? Once you have this for the departments on one floor, I would click on arrange, and that would basically just spread them out as per the best orientation. Okay, in this case, the AI generated output was already the best orientation, so it didn't do anything. If I click on pack, it just packs them all together, connected to each other. Okay, it's already packed once again. But let's say if I had to move them around a bit and run the tool again, it would start playing around with them and then packing them. These departments and the spaces are linked directly to the program mode. But if you're asking if there is a priority which you would like to give to some spaces over the others for the adjacency matrix, then no, that is not possible. What is possible, however, is it reads every space that you have selected, and then it does its research on the backend and then gives you like a good layout or like an ideal zoning situation where the correct spaces are next to each other. And you can always keep editing this as you go. You can even draw your own adjacency lines. The next step after this, by the way, would be to take these spaces that we have just lined up next to each other, these departments rather, and then start placing the individual spaces within them. So just dragging and dropping these spaces inside the departments to plan out your floors, right? So I'm just going to undo all of that. Realized I might have skipped a lot of the steps that explain how the AI actually gets to this and what like has been generated for us over here. So I'm just quickly going to go back to our AI stream. And yeah, it basically generates something like this. Now I'll just quickly go over everything on the left here. So quickly, site and context, analyzed. The program has been created as per what we just saw in the program sheet. This one is a quick overview of the same table, and it also gives you the total project area. These values are important because these are essentially the targets that are set at the beginning of your project. And over like towards the end, once you've finished your massing and everything, you might realize that you are 5% over or under, and you can adjust the relevant spaces accordingly, right? And also it gives a lot of background data, background research, so you can at all times verify and still you have all the control, right? Then it has space sizing, where it assigns the width and depth to each and every space. Excuse me. And it also gives you notes on why it has done so. It'll say things like, okay, the classroom needs to be maybe in a golden ratio layout so that you have optimal acoustics and a site, things like that. And it also generates these program diagrams, which are basically all the spaces that go inside the department and the department itself. So these are all different departments and the spaces within them. These diagrams are also automatically generated in the present mode. So you can directly start placing them on sheets. Then it generates a vertical stacking plan, which, as you can see over here, it has placed everything on the correct stories. Say over here, all the administration spaces, the gym, cafeteria, everything is on the lower floors, and the classrooms are on the top here. Right. Yeah, I have a question from Mark. Yes, absolutely. You can see the documentation. Let me just open the RFP up. Yeah, so it basically looks like this. It's a sample, of course, and you can go into a lot more detail, but I've kept the RFP simple for this project, and it just mentions brief things like what's the overall capacity of the school, how many stories, and then what are the general rules that we want to see for with stories. Like for the first floor should have all these spaces, like I mentioned, and the upper floors needs to have the classrooms, and then also mention some of the site and design considerations, performance, and sustainability goals. This is like a sample, pretty much can vary firm to firm, project to project, but the AI stack does the research once you upload this. Like you might have noticed that our prompt was actually very simple. It was just like create a school based on this RFP, but you have the option of writing a detailed prompt. Like you could go on about what each and every floor should have and how you want the project to turn out, or you can give it a very detailed RFP. So depending on your use case, everything works and you ultimately get something which is very close to what you would expect, right? But again, I would encourage you to try this out for yourself. Yeah, just a quick time check. We're half an hour in. Okay, cool. All right. Now, you get the idea so far that these departments and spaces are what you start blocking and stacking with. Over here, you can switch to editor mode at any time. And you'll end up in the design canvas. And over here, you can start placing them on your site. You can start blocking and stacking the way you would, right? And you have complete control over this. So once you're here, you might basically do your thing where you arrange them in different stories. You could place things anywhere. You have both the 2D and 3D canvases to play around with. Now I'm just going to quickly show you in present mode how you could present this as an early concept. So let's say we have all our departments over here on the first floor. And now I want to run department adjacencies for these, right? So by default, I'm just going to move them around and jumble up the pack of cards here. And once I compute the adjacencies, it's going to do its research and give us those adjacency lines. Now, the first output that the AI generates based on your prompt has already done this process, essentially. So the first model, so to say, that it gives you already has one level of AI analysis and adjacency analysis already built in. But this becomes very useful, especially when you start to place some of these detailed spaces inside the departments, right? When you're drawing new corridors and then you want to see which side of the corridor has what kind of spaces. Or for example, if you have a courtyard, what should be around it and things like that. So as you design, you might want to make new decisions at every step. And that's where you can just rerun this tool at any time. All right, so since I've already talked through this, the adjacencies, I'm quickly going to show you what the present mode data for this looks like. Okay, so yeah, let's say you were to come here, so these are all the diagrams that I was referring to earlier, with the departments as dotted outlines and all the spaces with their labels and the areas inside them. And on top of that, if I were to say, take my first floor plan, firstly, let me create a new sheet, and I can very easily drag in this plan 1 onto the sheet. I'll notice that it has come out in a weird scale, so I can quickly adjust that. And once I have this, I can also decide on how I want to show, like present this plan view. So let's say I want to see only my departments. On the top right here, you can see I can switch on or off different things. So let's switch off everything except for the departments in this case. And now I'm going to also switch to a bubble diagram view. So that's what I had like initially shown. This could actually go on to look something like this, where you present all the spaces within, for example, the administration department. And over here, they are with their adjacency lines as well. So that's also something that Snaptrude auto-generates. Once you're in present mode for the first time, it'll start auto-generating those adjacency diagram sheets. And that's, again, a new feature that we rolled out just yesterday. So you can, start creating diagrams like these and adding arrows and markups over them, and basically just going free with the way you want to present your concept, right? What should be on which level, and then how you would like the circulation to flow, what are the spaces that you would like to connect, and so on and so forth, right? That's the bubble diagram stage. Now I'm going to quickly talk about how you can also present your floor plans. Just coming back to this, it has created these adjacency lines. So once again, if I were to show you guys this plan 1, very quickly go into present mode, new sheet, drag plan 1, AI generated diagrams, switch off everything, keep adjacency lines on, and then switch to a bubble diagram. You get this here. And you can also move around these labels. You can adjust the transparency. You can do a lot of things with how you want to present this data. Yeah, I was talking about going into a more granular level with the floor plans. So just going back into design mode real quick, I'm going to skip through the entire process of actually placing each and every space inside the department and creating a new, like basically creating a concept for the building. But just to give you a quick overview of how simple it feels, let me draw a new space here. And in this case, I'm just going to draw the entire building envelope. You could also choose to go inside out with all these spaces, departments, laying each one of them on site and then planning things, or you could just start actually creating a project, right? Just from scratch. And this is probably what you would do the first time you load up the tool anyway. Yeah, I have, just to make things a little more interesting, just gonna drag this in a couple of places. And what I'll do is I will subdivide the height into floors of 15 feet each. Yeah, so you already have a mask that you can play around with. And you can also take any one of these spaces and start assigning them to your relevant departments. You could also go back in 2D mode and start splitting them up into smaller spaces. Drawing any lines, drawing any rectangles, for example, splits up the spaces automatically. So I can quickly just create a court here, for example. And let me just hide these. You'll be able to see that it has created a court here. You can also start doing some of your landscape planning. Excuse me if I'm skipping through a lot of the steps here, but yeah, what I just did is go to view settings, and in department, I chose texture. That basically allows me to view all the textures in the model. Earlier, it was set to department, so I was seeing each department as a separate color. And over here now, you'll be able to see that the code automatically has a material to it. And if I draw some more spaces like a deck, you'll see it automatically assign the materials and properties to these spaces. And this is very useful for doing landscape and entourage design, where it quickly allows you to sketch some things, just type out the label, and it automatically converts it into those objects, right? And once you're in BIM mode, you can actually assign colors and materials to each one of them. Yeah, you can start visualizing your model. You can start actually uploading your own materials and then assigning them over here. So right now, obviously, I've chosen the worst possible colors for that model, but you'll be able to see in a model like this, where this is already a BIM level model. But just to give you an idea of space level model, I think I haven't opened that right. Yeah. Just giving you an overview of what a finished massing model looks like. So yeah, this is the same project, what I showed you guys here in its earlier massing stage. I have just played around with the different massing blocks, the spaces, assigned them to the correct stories, added some circulation departments in red here, and yeah, just finished the massing model. And yeah, I just hit this show all. So I've also modeled some of the site elements over here. And again, you would be able to see them better when I'm in texture mode. I've placed some trees and basically just finished up the massing model as I would like it to be. Now, just to quickly also show you guys some of the sustainability features. So we have 3 features over here. One is the shadow analysis, which is a basic shadow analysis study of your model. The sonars and illuminance are these full-scale analysis that you can use to determine how much shading you need, what is the solar radiation that you're getting for each one for throughout the building. Now this takes a couple of minutes, so I'm just going to let it run here in the background. I think we have a couple of questions. Could these features also be used to design an entire residential development? Yes, absolutely. If you're doing it for the first time, you don't necessarily have to create an RFP type document. You could even prompt without attaching an RFP. Yeah, you can try that out. Just type in, give me a residential development for 500 homes of various sizes. Can curvature and non-cube masses be generated? They are not generated per se in the first step. Snaptrude works with curves as well. Like you can draw these masses. Excuse me. Yeah, you can draw freeform masses the way you would, but it does not generate them in the first AI output that you get. We are working on a feature where once you draw out the entire building envelope, you can actually, you can actually prompt the fact that you have an envelope and everything needs to be within that envelope. So it arranges things according to what you've drawn. So yeah, that's something that's coming up soon. Really excited for that as well. The new knowledge tab. Not sure the knowledge tab. Are you talking about the knowledge tab in the Teams library? I think I saw something over there. One sec. This one over here? Okay, yeah. So that's basically just, this is like for your research, I think. No, oh, it's just to talk to sales. Okay, it's like you can connect your company data and have everything templatized according to your firm. So one of the things which people ask us is how safe is our data? What exactly is Snaptrude keeping and what are we showing to the world? So the answer to that is your data always stays safe within the product. And we have an extensive backend setup for that, where none of your information is actually being shared outside of your individual projects. So the way what we are introducing now is also that you can actually upload your company data, upload your standard templates that you use, standards, your older projects, and then it uses that information to generate newer outputs. So that's basically what knowledge is going to be like. I haven't, to be honest, completely explored the workflow myself, but yeah, it's going to be very useful for firms which have templatized methods of working. All right, the next step, what I wanted to show you guys, I think we spoke about the initial AI part, we spoke about the adjacencies. Now, the next cool thing that Snaptrude AI does is obviously within your present mode, you can create AI renders. So let's switch over to present here, and you'll see that this is the kind of output that the Sanars analysis generates. These are just views dragged directly onto the sheet. And skipping past, these are some of the AI renders. So the way it works is very straightforward. You basically save views within your project, like these ones over here. And then let me just put one of these to the side. For each image, essentially, you get this prompt box over here. And you can type in the prompt to start the AI render. So for this one over here, let's say contemporary high school with realistic materials. Oh, with AI renders, it's better to give like more detailed prompts. So I'm just going to take 20 seconds to type this in. Okay, something quite random, but okay, let's see what it can do. And yeah, oh, sorry for not zooming in earlier. Yeah, you can also switch between the different AI rendering models over here. So by default, I like to use Nano Banana for static renders and VEO3 for walkthroughs. Yes, it also does walkthroughs. So for now, I'm going to hit enter on this Nano Banana prompt. And while that's rendering, I'll give you this example of the walkthrough. So over here, what on top is the Nano Banana generated render. And then we prompted it to generate a walkthrough from that render. Oops, okay, it took us here. Okay, over here, since it has generated something which I don't like a lot, but yeah, I can just go back and reprompt, which is more detailed or which kind of addresses these things. I can also prompt again on top of an AI render, right? So I could also say improve All right, so say enhance realism, lighting, and shadows. Okay, couple of questions again. I'll start taking them from the most recent ones. Do you control the walkthrough direction, or is that up to AI? Okay, so you can, like for this particular one, I actually had it in the prompt that the camera needs to be panning in towards the building. If you do not prompt, I guess it's up to the AI. But if you do, then it actually gives you very good results. That's something that I've experienced with EO3. Unfortunately, conflict. Okay, sorry to hear that. Is AI image and video generation included in the subscription, or is there token costs? Once again, I think like I'm a bit lost over here. I'll just have to check and get back to you. As far as I remember, it is available for free in your first 3 projects. But just let me just check that. Yeah, if I'm using outside the programs for the renderings, who owns the resulting image? Not quite sure. I think we'll have to get back on that as well. I'm not sure what the regulations are with regard to these AI generated images. Please let me get back to you on that. But yeah, over here, you'll see that it has done a slightly better job than earlier. But yeah, these renders, what I got over here were after 5 or 6 different tries. And also, yeah, it works better with BIM models. So that's something that to keep in mind. But yeah, I think that's about it. That's the entire workflow which I wanted to show you guys. I obviously skipped through most parts of the actual designing and arranging these spaces around corridors and those drawing new departments and spaces. But maybe that's for another webinar. Today, the focus was on the new AI capabilities and the entire suite that you now have with the latest releases. So yeah, that's about it from me, guys. We'll open it up for some questions. You can put it in the chat. Okay, yeah. Can it animate interiors? Yes, absolutely it can. Once you have things in the BIM tab, like once you start detailing your interiors a bit more, for example, now I'm over here, I can go ahead within the BIM tab, we have a furniture library. So you can start putting some of these furniture elements inside the rooms. And similarly, like when you save a new view, it's going to enhance that basically as an AI render. You can, I'm sure you can also just not place any furniture and just like with an empty room, you can save a view. Like this. And you can just prompt it to create like an interior view of a classroom, right? I think my view is from within the glass. Okay, yeah. Quickly gonna update view, go back to present and update this as well. This space might not actually have been a classroom. It's probably too small, but let's see what it does. And while it does that, okay. Yeah, okay, it does create something like this. But obviously the layout is not as what you would expect. So again, it's better if you have placed the elements in your model. But if you haven't, then like obviously it tends to hallucinate a bit. But it's still great for like early presentations. I'm sure with a couple of more prompts, you could get this to look and feel a lot more realistic. How to give better prompts. It's always trial and error. I'm still like trying out myself, like you can see. There are a lot of tips and tricks available online. Since these are AI rendering models that we have directly incorporated within Snaptrude, the information holds true for all of these. Anything you can find on how to get better Nano Banana renders would be valid inside Snaptrude as well. How do we work with renovations? So yeah, one thing which I haven't mentioned till now is the interoperability. So Snaptrude works seamlessly with Revit and with Rhino as well, and with all other 3D modeling tools. But specifically with Revit and Rhino, you can actually import your Revit models into Snaptrude. Also, once you have a BIM model like this one, you can actually export it to Revit, and all your families will be imported as editable Revit families. So you could go ahead and start modifying the walls, continue detailed space planning in Revit. So the answer to your question is you can import an existing project, an existing site, and then you could start restoring it or refurbishing it from a perspective of concept design and how you could actually reimagine that space within the existing building, so to say. What factors determine the speed of the render? A good internet connection and a laptop with maybe a good, or like a PC with a good RAM. I think that also helps, but the difference is minuscule. It usually takes anywhere between 5 to 15 seconds for a static render from Nano Banana. Yeah, but again, like I said, anything that holds true outside Snaptrude for Nano Banana is also true within. Can you connect to database data in doc platforms, or is Excel the only option? You can't directly connect like an external file to Snaptrude, but I would suggest like exploring some of the things within program mode. For example, if you were to, for example, import one of your program files that you might have somewhere else, you could actually import it in any format. It doesn't have to be an RFP, like a written document. It could just be an Excel sheet with 10 columns with different spaces. And you could ask Snaptrude to interpret the data from the file that you've imported, right? So you could say that, okay, I want you to create spaces based on everything that is in row number 2, and then so on and so forth, right? And it'll actually convert it into a format that is stored right here in your program tab, and that creates these spaces inside the design tab automatically. Once it's inside Snaptrude, obviously it's always connected between program and design tab. And you can also export all of these programs, these tables as you would in Excel. You can also just select like a lot of these cells and directly copy them into your present mode. Just like that. In program mode, yeah, one thing which I would also like to mention over here, since I opened this, so you have different actions that you can perform within program mode. Design is for modifying all the design elements, like everything that is stacked in the 3D canvas. You can ask it to add or remove some of the spaces. You could say that I want to increase all my classrooms by 15%. So it would automatically update your entire program and the 3D model when you do that. You can also ask it to research building codes and regulations. So you could say, okay, what are the local guidelines for cafeteria spaces? And it'll give you everything over here, just like it did in the first output that we created, right? In a similar format, it would just type out everything inside this chatbot. You could also ask it to create charts. So you could say something like present this data in A simple chart. No chart created. Is it because I have selected only some of the spaces? Let me try running that again. But yeah, you get the idea. I just noticed we are almost over time. So I'm happy to answer any questions after the call. If you want to reach out, our team is always available. All you need to do is go to snaptrude.com and you'll find a chatbot over there where you can ask all your questions or you can email us anytime. And yeah, just to say again, Snaptrude is absolutely free for everyone to try out. So please go ahead and let us know what you think. And if you're a student or an educator, it's absolutely like Snaptrude Pro is free for you. So yeah, I would like to sign off with that. It was a pleasure hosting you guys. Thank you. Thanks. Take care. Thank you. All right. Bye then.